Hi, I'm Stefan, and today we take a look at this historic musical instrument, the first digital synthesizer you could actually buy. So this is the Synclavier, and it was made by the now defunct New England Digital Corporation based in Vermont back in 1978. And it is in fact the first commercially available digital synthesizer ever made. Back in the days, this was quite an expensive instrument, and it catered mostly to research and educational institutions rather than regular keyboard players. So commercially available, at the end of the day, meant that only 13 of these were ever built. This is serial number 6, and it belonged to the University of Victoria in Canada, where I was a music student. So what can it do? Well, it combines additive with FM synthesis. Now, FM sounds had never been heard before outside of research labs like at Stanford University, so these were crazy new sounds. It has 4 channels of 8-bit analog output converters with no anti-aliasing filters, which give it its distinct raw and edgy sound. The advertised specs claim 100 kHz of bandwidth, whatever that means, and 140 dB of dynamic range per channel. These are 8-bit converters. Honest to God, I don't know where these numbers come from, but it certainly looked impressive on paper. Now, the first thing you'll note when you turn it on is that absolutely nothing happens except for a fan coming on, and that is because before you can actually start playing, you have to load some software. And the software that came with it is on this floppy disk. And once you load this disk into memory, you can then play normally on the black and white keyboard, and all the front panel buttons do what the labels say. And this is great for live keyboard playing, but of limited interest to experimental music composers. And this is why institutions like this thing, because having to load software first means you could hook up a terminal, write your own software, and make it do something completely different. And this is exactly what happened. For example, there was an extensive additive synthesis project called Fourier coming out of Brown University in Rhode Island, which I also have on this disk. At the University of Victoria, where I studied, we used a system called Moxie. Now, Moxie was developed by Doug Collins, and this really takes the Synclavier to the next level. It lets you reprogram the hardware to do what you want it to do and interact with multiple independent processes in real time. So you could, for example, have a multi-channel composition running, and then hitting a key might send a control voltage to an external piece of equipment. Another key might start a new voice or change the tuning or the waveform, or you could also throw random values at pretty much any parameter that you wanted to modify. In fact, it wasn't that difficult to get pretty complex textures with just a few lines of code. Moxie is still maintained by Doug for modern operating systems, and if you're into that sort of thing, there will be a link in the description to this video. Now, the reason I'm telling you all this today is because after more than 3 decades that I've had the pleasure to own this instrument, it is time to say goodbye. The Synclavier will leave my studio and become part of a private collection of early digital synthesizers, and I really think this is where it belongs. Now, the many hours that I spent programming and composing on it, I've captured in a lot of recordings over the years, and I will make bits and pieces of this available as a free download. So if you want to listen to some wacky experimental stuff created on this machine, I encourage you to check this out at rootmusic.com. And finally, I'm planning to release a sampling library capturing some of the iconic presets and probably some other goodies. For more on this, please visit my sampling library page at rootsounds.com. All of these links are in the description. So I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about this truly unique and rare instrument, and for the rest of this video I will leave you with some impressions of the Synclavier, and I thank you for watching.